I'm Tracy, I'm an addict.
Tracy.
No pressure after that clapping. Today a few people at the house have said, are you excited to share? And I was like, are you crazy? I'm like, and that's kind of what my disease does, is it can rob me of something really good, you know, and really beautiful. And that's why I'm probably still here, and I will hopefully, in my chair here. And then I was told I had less time to share, and I was like, oh my God, 11 years is quite a long time to share in like half an hour, but I'm going to try my best. And also I hadn't shared for a while, so my disease was telling me I'm going to blank out, and it's not going to be great, but all I can do is carry the message and allow God to talk through me. So, like as far back as I can remember, I was a difficult child. Now being a mom with 2 kids, I can kind of see I had temper tantrums right from like very young, and I remember them. They were really, really bad. I didn't like not getting my own way. And my parents didn't know how to deal with that. So often I was locked in my room and isolated, which for an addict of my type was the worst kind of thing to do. So I try not to do that with my kids. But my parents got divorced. I think they were high school sweethearts from about 13, 14, and they got divorced. They got married very young and divorced by the time I was 2 or 3. And I went to go and live with my mom. And it was my mom and I against the world. I just loved her and she loved me, and we used to fight though, and it was okay. And that was kind of how life was. I would see my dad every now and then, but he'd always been a functional alcoholic. So when something better came along, that's where he was, which was fine because I didn't really understand. And when I was 6 years old, we were on our way to school, and a Patco bus skipped a red robot, and my mom died in front of me. It sounds very dramatic, but that was what happened. And after that, my life just changed. It was very sudden. Like, I remember a lot of what happened on the day. I've been for a lot of therapy to kind of try and help me, because that was what I thought was the problem. But like a lot of people go through death all the time. But anyway, I'll get to that part of my story. I went to go live with my gran for a while, and there was a lot of who I was going to live with, and eventually my dad married my mom's best friend, and I kind of lived with them, and they tried their best to have a very normal life. I went to private school, and they tried they tried to give me the best of everything. I didn't always see that, and I was always quite ungrateful, and they stopped having children so they could give me the best of everything until I was about 13, and my first brother arrived, and my whole life changed again. I was resentful. I wasn't the limelight anymore. And then by the time my second brother came along, I was like, this was really terrible. And I went to boarding school, where my dad had very high hopes for me. He had been to the same boarding school, and he thought I was going to be his girl. And there was a lot of pressure on me. But as soon as I got there, I did what Tracy did, and I kind of navigated to the people I felt comfortable with, the smokers, all the rebels. So I was constantly in trouble. I think I held the record. I was laughing with someone the other day about 13 weeks of kitchen duty, until eventually, I think it was social. It was about the 3rd term, and one of the day boarders brought in alcohol, and I'd had a fight with one of my girlfriends because she chose her boyfriend over me, and that was not okay. So we all went into the bathroom and started drinking tequila, and everyone else had one sip and they were fine. It just changed my life. The music started sounding better. I didn't give a shit about my friend anymore, and I kind of just kept going back, drinking something that didn't taste so great, until eventually I blacked out. I woke up to being tied to bed, very dramatic. I wanted to kill myself. I'd even told the principal exactly what I thought of him, which was not much. So I obviously got asked to leave the school. So there, my dad's hopes went from being head girl to being like asked to leave. And my stepmom didn't want me around anymore because she didn't want me to be around my brothers, being a bad influence. So I went to go live with my aunts and my uncle. I'm originally from Joburg, and it was a very different class. And I went from the north to the east Rand, and it was very different for me. Life was just very different, and I was really, really sad. I felt really rejected by my family. I didn't see it. It was in my behavior that had caused a lot of that. I was very resentful about my mom dying, and I kind of just did what I had to do, and I just slept most of the time. I was very depressed. The school took me that I went to, I think I was on my 7th school, and they kind of said to me, look, this is your last road. So I could kind of change. I went from really bad to really good. I was allowed to smoke at home, but my uncle that we were living with was an alcoholic as well, so my aunt was very strict with alcohol and curfews and that kind of thing, but I was just so depressed and I hated life and I just slept most of the time. So at 16 I went to the first doctor, got put on antidepressants to try and help me get through school because I hated school. Like even though I had a car accident on the way to school, I used to wish, like I just didn't want to be at school anymore. And I kind of got through to about standard 9, where because I didn't apply myself, I failed. And I had two choices, either to carry on or to go to college. So I went to college and I excelled quite well because it was something I enjoyed. There were no rules. I could have my fringe longer, I could smoke if I wanted to, and that kind of like worked out a lot better for me than rules. I hated rules. So so I did that for a while and I did really well at college. Until drinking had started happening more and more for me, until eventually my aunt couldn't cope with me anymore and she kicked me out and I went to go live with my dad, where his rules were like, because he was an alcoholic as well, he was like, you could do what you want, and I was like, yes, this is really cool. Except he had been, I think I was about 12 or 13 and I started sniffing Tipex thinners. My dad found out and he took me into Hillbrow and he showed me like the crack houses and the prostitutes and the street children and like everything, and it freaked me out. I even went to a rehab where he showed me where people were detoxing with heroin, and I was like completely, so I didn't take drugs until I was about 19 because I was petrified of like all that stuff, until eventually like alcohol, every time I drank, like I couldn't understand, but I kept blacking out and getting into worse and worse situations. I'd land up in crazy places, crazy situations. People wouldn't want to talk to me the next day because I kind of didn't know what I'd done, until my best friend had said to me, she had gone out and she had used this drug, and she's like, but Trace, it's so much cheaper. Like it's, you know what you're doing, you don't look like shit anymore, and she's like, let's just try it. It was a lot, so off we went, and I got into my first rave, and I took this drug, and I was like, oh my god, my whole world changed. I was like, I think everyone should be on this. Everyone loved each other, I didn't look terrible, I was like, yay, like life was really cool until Tuesday, and then I wanted to slit my wrist, and I was not happy anymore. But it kind of started a cycle for me, and obviously, like, it was cheap in the beginning, and it got more and more expensive, but it kind of controlled the drinking, which helped me for a while. And then at that stage, I met my ex-husband. I went to a Carl Cox rave, and it was a really messed up situation. He thought he was gay, and I was actually pregnant with a married man's child, and that was how we kind of met. It was very dysfunctional right from the beginning. But we just thought that we belonged together, and that was it. But to be honest, like, I kind of knew that I never loved him, but he was my knight in shining armor, and he kind of controlled everything for me and made everything better and helped me with my debt. And from the outside, everything looked great, but from the inside, it was not okay. And because we're both addicts, our using accelerated. Like, it started off only on weekends, and it was fun, and then it kind of got to during the week. And like I was saying, so the weekends were great. By Wednesday, I was like ready to slip my wrists and never do it again. And by Friday, I was like, okay, let's go again. And it kind of, the cycles got shorter and shorter. I think I was about 22 and I was in a shopping center on my own. And I started getting paranoid. Like, the paranoia hit me. I felt like the cops were after me, the cameras were going to get me. And I was like really, really in a panic stage. And that's where it took me to my first psychiatrist. And I was obviously never honest with what I was doing. Like, he was like, oh, do you use drugs? Yeah, a little bit. And I was kind of never, ever honest with what I was doing. And all of a sudden I was borderline personality, bipolar, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, this is great. Yay. I finally know that there's something wrong with me, because I kind of always knew there was something wrong with me. And I had labels and I had medication and people felt sorry for me. And I was like, this is cool. I like this. And that kind of went, and that cycle started for me. So I started landing up in psych wards, and the more psych wards I went in, the more medication I was on, the more they were trying to sort out the balance, the more I wasn't honest with, like, during the week what I was doing. So while my disease progressed, my ex-husband also progressed, obviously, into gambling and to all other kinds of things, and we kind of grew apart because our diseases took us in different directions. And I think we've been together for like 4 years, married for 4 years, and the one day I woke up and I'm like, can't do this anymore. Sorry, I don't care about the BMW, and I don't care about the cats and the dogs and our families. I'm out of here. Like, this is not doing it for me anymore, because all I actually cared about was myself. And I left. I left a lot of devastation. I left a lot of hurt people, not understanding, and I actually just didn't care. I was like in my little bubble of medication, and I was cool. And yeah, so I thought that I could do this on my own for a while, and obviously without my ex-husband's control, like I didn't do that well for a while, and work started sliding. I was a hairdresser, and I was doing quite well, and eventually like I couldn't make it to my appointments anymore, I couldn't make it to work, I was rather using, and then I kind of blamed my whole bipolar and I can't get the balance right, until eventually like then I decided no, Joburg is not for me anymore. I need to come down to the coast. My family lived in Ballito. I've bought myself a scooter, and I thought I'm going to just live this like real beachy, cool life. But I didn't realize like I would follow. And I think within 6 months, my dad again tried to do everything for me. I had a nice place, I had a good job, I had everything, and within 6 months, I lost everything. I couldn't keep up with my job. I couldn't keep up with the street drugs. I could leave in Joburg, but it was medication and alcohol that brought me to my knees more than anything else. I just couldn't cope anymore. Like, and the more I tried, the more I blacked out, the more like I just couldn't get there. And inside, I just felt so dead. Like I had no friends left anymore. I didn't care about myself. I didn't care about my dignity. I just did whatever I needed to do to feel better at that time, and kind of screw everybody else. My family were distraught. They thought that they had me to come and stay, and my gran was phoning me and saying, it's a small town, everybody's talking about you, and I just didn't give a shit. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, who are you? I would just cut people off, and I couldn't see that stuff until eventually I landed up in my flat. I think some guy I'd met the night before had stolen my scooter, and I was locked inside, and they had to come and get the door down, but I wanted to die. Like, I was too scared to live or die. I just didn't want to be there anymore, that lonely, horrible feeling. And that's when it kind of, I must have called out to something, because slowly things started happening for me, and my dad started hearing in Joburg how bad things were, and the next thing I landed up in hospital for I think about 2 weeks. Also more medication though, and they kind of didn't know what to do with me. They released me because they said they don't deal with addicts, but then I had nowhere to go, and eventually my dad flew me to Joburg to go to a rehab there. I'd been there a few times, but in the psych ward. I'd never been into the rehab ward, which I was not happy about, because I didn't want to be labelled. I didn't want to be a drug addict. I'd like much rather be mentally ill, which is like crazy on its own. Anyway, so I got there. I'd had my last drink. I didn't know that was going to be my last drink ever. I had a double gin and tonic, and the alcoholic in me, I would have had more if I'd known that was going to be my last drink. But I got to Joburg, and my dad was not putting up with my shit anymore, and he locked me in the house, and he's like, you're going to rehab tomorrow, and that's it. And I was like, what? I'd planned a party. And so I took all my sleeping pills hoping to die, and that didn't work. So the next thing I landed up in a rehab, and I was there for 3 weeks, not wanting to be there. And while I was there, my dad wrote me a letter, and he was kind of like, I've lost your mom, and I can't watch you die. Like, I'm giving you a chance, and I'm going to help you wherever I can, but I can't sit and watch you. Like, if this is going to be, then you've got to go. And like, I was so full of medication and whatever, like, it didn't really hit home, but I knew my dad meant business. And like, I knew that was it. So in the beginning I complied, and I kind of tried to do it for him, but I wasn't really, like, I was very divisive in treatment. I was trying to get everyone against the counsellors and whatever, and they'd said I need long-term treatment. So my dad had got into contact with other people, and the coast seemed like a good idea. And there were 2 different rehabs. The one was very Christian-based, which my dad was like, that's not going to work. So he got hold of the one treatment centre, and yeah, the guy that used to be the counsellor was actually coming to Joburg, and he came into the treatment centre to meet me, and he told me, like, they don't really advise you on medication, but it's okay, and he kind of like gave me the pink cloud version, and I was like, okay. So I landed up going, and I landed up here. My dad flew me here, and I came into treatment, not knowing what to expect. But while I was at that treatment centre, the one good thing about it was sort of a 12-step treatment centre, so I would go to meetings every night, so I kind of got introduced to the fellowship in that way. And I started hearing about God, and I was like, oh, whatever. God has never been there for me. If God was there, he wouldn't have taken my mum away from me. So, like, screw that idea. That's not going to work for me. So anyway, I landed up at this treatment centre. I had a fight with the owner because he told me, we don't do anti-booze here, we don't do medication here. And I was like, oh, screw you. And I slammed the door and I went upstairs and I sulked. And no one came for me. But everyone else in the house was very supportive and very loving. And eventually they said to me, look, like, you're probably not even all those things that you're being labelled with. But I'm like, no, I've just seen the psychiatrist. They told me for 2 years I've got to stay on my medication before I can come off clean, and then I can come off. So I'm like, okay, Paul. I'm like, no, that's not going to work for me. I'm like, the psychiatrist said so. So they're like, no, try it. And I wasn't willing at all. I watched the DVD, and then I started seeing people in the house really happy and have found something. And I started speaking to them, and they're like, yeah, they were on this medication, and they've come off, and they didn't die, and they're okay. And I kind of started seeing, and something changed for me, and I was like, okay. Put my big girl panties on, and I'm like, okay, let me try this. Then they started like working out a plan to cut everything, and I was like, I don't know if I like this idea so much. I nearly stabbed Brian with a knife when he tried to cut like part of my medication, because in those days there was no nurse or anything. So anyway, yeah, so that happened, and I kind of went with the thing. I know everyone thinks I've had the worst detox in the world, but I really thought I had a bad detox. I was on so much medication for quite a long time, and anyway, eventually it started coming off, and I started feeling a bit better. I think it took me 5 or 6 weeks to do step 1, and when I look back, I couldn't even read my writing. It was that bad, I had to redo it. By the time I got to step 3, I got caught out for dishonesty. Like, step 2 for me was kind of because I didn't believe in God. I'd been brought up Catholic from my gran, but because of what had happened to me, I was like, not for me. I think I even had an anarchy tattoo on me, and I was like, I really did not dig God at all. And I didn't understand how it all worked, and the story in the big book was how the life just works and how things just work. It kind of made sense to me, and my sponsor at the time took me outside, and there was a big tree outside that's been cut off now, which I'm very upset about. But she's like, look how everything just kind of goes together. She's like, the moon and everything is just together. Something greater than you is doing that. And I kind of was like, oh, okay. So that was the beginning of me of like starting to come to believe like there's something greater than me. And I used to drive down to the meetings and kind of see how the sea and the sun, and that's how I've always kind of felt connected to the sea. That was kind of where my higher power started, and it just kind of grew for me. And then, by the time I got to step 3, I got caught out in a dishonesty. Every time I'd gone to rehab or gone to psych ward, I got involved in a dishonest relationship, because if I couldn't have my fix, I would fix with anybody else. And for the first time, I got caught out. And I'm so grateful for that, because otherwise I would have carried on going in and out without any change. It was very hard. I got told by the whole house how sick I made the whole house and how sick I was, and I didn't want to be like that anymore, and I had to kind of change. I had every consequence you can imagine, and I had a man band, which was really good for me as well, because I kind of also looked like I learned, I didn't know like how I'd use the opposite sex to manipulate and get what I wanted. This time there were 4 women in the house. The house was a lot smaller than it is now, and Wendy was one of them. I had to learn to be with women, and it was uncomfortable, and I didn't want that. But it was very, very good for me, because when the ban was lifted, it taught me new boundaries and new respect. So that was my step 3. That kind of happened with the change. And step 4, when I did it, my big resentment was with God, with my mom for dying, and the Paco bus driver that killed her. I used to sometimes, when I was in psych wards, I used to phone the Paco bus, and I wanted to know where this guy was. I wanted him to suffer for what I'd been through. It was not okay. That was my anger and rage. And kind of when I had to do my step 4, and I looked at that stuff, and I could see that it was I manipulated my whole life. I got out of everything. Poor Tracy got whatever she wanted because her mom died. And I used that, and I lived on that for years. And when I kind of saw that, it made sense. The resentment didn't go away, though, for the bus driver, but I had to start praying for him. And I was like, you're fucking crazy. Pray for someone I hate. That's not okay. But I kind of did it because I was desperate, and I followed what I had to do. And eventually, because when I used to see a bus when I was driving, I used to like shake and freak out, and kind of like it started getting easier. When I'd see the bus, I wouldn't be so nervous anymore. And eventually that resentment went, and I actually felt pity for the guy, like he had to live with that, you know, like it was probably an accident, and things happen, and there's no mistakes that my life landed up like that, you know. So yeah, I did. When I sat down with my sponsor to do my step 5, I thought I was a really nice person. I thought I was honest, and I thought I was quite sweet, and I thought I was really nice. And when I actually had to look at my stuff, I was like, oh my God. Like some people get a pink cloud when they do step 5. For me, it was hard. Like I had to have a hard look at myself, and I wasn't as nice as I thought I was. But it was enough for me wanting to change. Like I was grateful that I had that, because my 6 and 7 was like, okay, look at my defects. And my defects weren't like, as I got more into recovery, my defects came more out. Like I didn't know that they were as hectic. Yeah, so I kind of did that. When I did my amends list, like a lot of the stuff I couldn't do direct amends. I couldn't do direct amends to my mom. I couldn't sit down with my gran and them and tell them exactly what had happened, so it was a lot of indirect amends. But what's happened for me in my recovery is God has presented me with amends, like they come out of the blue. Like one of them was my gran, because I treated her really badly and I was never really there for her. The first time, the anniversary of my mom's death, I was there for them, you know, and then her brother came to stay with him from Zimbabwe. He'd lost everything. He was quite elderly and quite sick, and he lived with him for a few months, and she couldn't cope. And eventually, like, it was God talking to me the one day. I'd gone there and I could see it was very dysfunctional, and it kept on in my head, and I phoned in, I'm like, please bring him to Scotland. Like, there's 5 million old age homes here. Like, I live in an old age home place. And so he moved here in an old age home, but I was able to look after him, and it just kind of, like, I'd never looked after anyone other than myself, and I could take him to the doctor and take him to the bank and take him to the library and kind of be there. And in that, I'd met him a few times in my life. I didn't owe him amends. I owed my gran, but it came back as amends to them. Like, I changed. I didn't have to. When I first came out of treatment, I wanted everyone to see how wonderful I was and how I'd changed. But that kind of stuff was when I wasn't even trying and changing. That was like where the true change had come in. Yeah, so I did my amends. I couldn't make for a lot of them, and I had to wait a year to make some of them. When I had to finally, when I finished my steps, it was time for me to start working. And once, this is my experience, it's not everyone else's experience, so I'm going to freak everyone out, but once I stopped, when I started working, my fear was really, really bad. Like, I'd never worked without medication, I'd never worked without a bubble around me, and for the first time that had been taken away. And I had really, really bad fear. I had a lot of self-obsession. The first job I went to, I actually left halfway during the day. The fear was so crippling. I left a lady with highlights on her head. And I had to phone. I was still at the treatment centre, and I had a phone, and that was what I was told to do. So I sat at the coffee shop. I could either drink, or I could pick up the phone, and I phoned, and I'm like, please come fetch me. And she right back, she came to fetch me, and I was defeated. I cried for about 3 days. I was so upset that I couldn't make it. But it was a turning point for me again in my recovery. And the director sat me down. He's like, some people do struggle a bit longer, and it's okay, this is your journey, because I saw people doing 3 months and off they went. And for me, I was like 7 months, and I was struggling. And I just had to do it slower, do less work time, and I kind of landed up in Scotland, and half the fellowship were there. Like, the fellowship was very, very small 11 years ago. A lot of us had just come. I think there were 2 other girls and about 3 guys, and that was a fellowship. But I was grateful because they all worked in the mall. And so every time I'd freak out about the mirrors or the phone or the people, I'd be like, oh, run to the bathroom, see somebody from the fellowship, get on my knees, phone my sponsor, and kind of just get on with it. And eventually, like, and I did not want to go back into hairdressing, but it was the only thing I could do, and it was the only thing that came up, and it was good for my self-obsession because I had to get through that stuff. And once that was done, like, after 18 months, things changed, and I ended up working for a neighbor who did an online company, and I kind of learned computers. And at that stage, I think I was 19 months, and Rob, we'd been in treatment together, but we were friends. It was the first time we kind of like had a proper friend relationship. And we went on a date. We were both so freaking nervous. We both asked our sponsors, we'd done it the right way. But we were very, very nervous. I think we ate 1 piece of pizza, and we still laugh and giggle about it now. But yeah, we're going to take it slow. We tried at Excel. I think within a month or two we were staying together, but that's slow for addicts. Yeah, sure. And if I thought I knew myself then, to get into a relationship, like, my defects came out. I was controlling, I was willful, I was all these things I didn't know about myself until I got into a relationship. And yeah, it was a ride. Like, for the first 2 years it was hard. Like, it was hard work learning to be with another addict, but we kind of, like, I heard someone else sharing with their boyfriend, and I was like, I remember the first years in recovery, we did about 3 meetings in a day, and we did service, and it was all about that, and that was amazing. Like, that was what we needed. It was really, really cool. I kind of, I landed up with another job, learning computer stuff, which I'd never done before. Like, so, and I really got stuck into the fellowship. Like, I did a lot of service, I did a lot of H&I, I did whatever I could, you know, and that kind of kept me sober. And like, I never thought when I got out of treatment they said 90 or 90. I was like, oh, please. But something kept me coming back. Like, I was just happier, and I was better when I was at meetings. Yeah, now I'm in a blank. I'm like, what happened? There's so much stuff that's happened. I did my amends. I kind of ended up, I lost my job. Rob and I got married. What is time looking at? Yeah, I'm cool. Rob and I, yeah, we got married after, I think, being together for 6 years, and I lost my job. I got retrenched. So I had to go back into hairdressing. Our wedding was based on recovery. I was very nervous getting married again because I was like, this is my second marriage. And I remember going to Don, and he married us. He was our priest. We got married legally, and then he did our whole ceremony. And he was like, just for today, he's like, you can't promise someone for the rest of your life you're going to love them, but just for today you can love them. And that kind of was like, oh, the pressure's off. You know what I mean? I can just apply my program in my relationship every day, and that's kind of what we've done, and we based our relationship on that, which has been amazing. Like, it's been hard work, but it's been amazing and a lot of growth. And so we had a really good wedding. Everything was fellowship. We went to Mauritius for our honeymoon. We were very blessed. And then I did hairdressing. I had to go back into hairdressing, something I didn't want to do. But that was life. And it just kind of gave me my own, I had to do what I had to do. And then I fell pregnant. And we had our first child, and that was really, really exciting, but also very daunting. And I missed my mom a lot. You know, that was the first time I think I've ever really missed her a lot. But I could do this sober, and I had fellowship, and I had people around me, which has been really, really amazing. And then we we were just going to have one child because it was a lot of growth for us, and God had other plans for us, and we landed up falling pregnant with our daughter. With that though, there was the whole thing about God's always got our backs, because we hadn't planned on it, and I was actually off medical aid. And the next thing I'm pregnant, and we couldn't really afford to have the baby. But we've both spoken to our sponsors, and they were like, God always looks after you. You don't have to worry about anything. And we kind of tried to do it the government route because we didn't want to ask our families for help. And I got really sick with the pregnancy. And eventually, I can't explain to you how God just stepped in. Like, the next thing, I was in a government ward, I was in a private ward, having my baby, being completely looked after. She came at 7 months, so she was prem, and I was so fearful something was going to happen. And God kind of looked after it. Like, I get emotional because, like, that kind of grace is, like, no one can explain it. And the next thing we had a 7-month-old little baby. Everything was fine. She was perfect, and I was looked after, and financially everything was okay. So I'm really grateful. And the weird thing is, this time last year when I shared, the lady that looked after my baby, she passed away this year from cancer. And one of my sponsees that was sitting in front of me, she passed away. She hung herself last year. So it's kind of like what happened last year to this year has been completely, that's actually how I wanted to open up my chair. But so we were looked after, and that's kind of God's grace for me, is even when you think things are impossible and it's too big, God kind of steps in and things just happen beyond your wildest dreams. And then I kind of went back to work, not what I wanted to do, and then I had the opportunity to go and work up at the treatment centre, and that wasn't exactly how I thought it was going to be. It was a lot more challenging, I must tell you. But I've been grateful for the experience. I got to work with one of my best friends. We both got to practice our programs. And yeah, I think the biggest thing working at the treatment centre for me is like seeing families, like, and that's been a big thing for me, is to see how I affected my family and to see how other families are affected. Like, that's been huge for me. But yeah, I'm really grateful to see, and I like, the best thing is to see people getting better. I love that, and I love being part of that. I love being part of the environment. Yeah, I'm really blessed to be in recovery. Like, I can't express my gratitude for everything that's happened, and yeah, so I'm grateful for everything. Thanks.